So welcome back to the Lucky 13 podcast, where we talk about all things people and profit in business. I'm your co-host, Mike Lantz, and my other co-host here, I'll introduce you, is Joshua Sheffy Hauser.
I just want to go by Sheffy from now on.
Sheffy,
or a symbol. I was in Minnesota airport, and I think I'd like to adopt Prince's symbol, so I got to figure out something for the chef.
The Sheffy symbol. We ought to get a logo developed. We might even just change the podcast.
There's a lot of people who have logos developed for that, but we can't put those on air.
So we're in the holiday time, and I think I saw a video recently from your wife about Impish the elf. Ooh. We've talked about it before, but she's in kind of full solution mode right now. So tell me a little bit about that.
Christmas shoes every day, Christmas sweater, it's all things Christmas. And Impish the elf was really developed that, think about the grip and rip life that everybody lives at Christmas. I was that person. 30 minutes into Christmas, Christmas is over. And what Impish the elf did with Santa Claus's permission was build experiences at Christmas that literally last us 6 to 8 hours a Christmas day. It's just to drive the magic in the room of everything from Dakota rings to scavenger hunts to fill in the blanks. And no names are on any presents in our house. And we got a lot of kids, and we wrap everything. We'll wrap one pair of underwear to unwrap, just to watch them have to search through everything to find that gift. And really,
and how long has this been going on?
15 years now. So she's written her fourth book, and she's going to write all 15. And then every year we have a new one. Whatever Impish creates as an experience, she writes a book and tries to replicate it. And so, Santa goes to work on Christmas Eve. I'm glad he has a portal to travel wherever it's at, because it's about 3 to 4 hours to put a Christmas Eve together at our house. But it is, I don't know if our kid will ever remember a present, but they will always remember the experience of the 8 to 10 hours of sitting together and solving essentially escape room type ideas on how to open Christmas presents. There you go.
And what time does it start in the morning? Like, what's the rules in your household?
The rules are mom does not come out of the bedroom till 6. 3:30, 4 o'clock, they're pitter-patter everywhere.
Really?
Now, I'm as bad as the rest of them. So I'm like, I'm out there touching things and getting in trouble. And then we always, stockings, breakfast, and then 8 hours of, hey, y'all watch this. And it is one at a time. You got to find it. You got to solve your riddle. You got to find it. And it's just, all it does is force us to be in a room for 8 to 10 hours. And it doesn't matter if you open up one of those sneaker balls, which are, I think, the greatest gift ever because all our kids' feet smell awful, to a new Apple Watch. It doesn't matter. It's all about finding your gift and having that experience.
So what about relatives being a part of this? Do you allow that, or is this
we let them watch? We put them in the cheap seats.
Yeah, sell tickets.
Sell tickets. Most of them come over for about 2 hours and like, you guys aren't done yet, and then they leave. And that is the purpose of it. We don't want that. Open presents and everybody goes to the room for the day. We're literally from 6 o'clock in the morning till almost 6 o'clock at night because we do a fashion show at the end. Everybody's got to try their stuff on. We take pictures. It turns into an extravaganza.
I really think there needs to be a reality show about your family.
I do not think that.
I think it'd be awesome.
I do not.
You know what one of the craziest traditions on Christmas morning that our kids started when they were really young is, and all of ours are stacked. So they're all a year apart. And they would sleep in the same bedroom together.
Oh, love that. Okay,
so kind of cool. They still do it to this day.
Perfect.
And they're 25, 24, 23, and they all come home, and then they all sleep in the same bedroom.
Love it. We used to have Camp Christmas. That was what we called it. Camp Christmas, and from the 22nd through the 25th, everybody slept in the basement. And then my boys pretty much ruined that. I'll just call it. I love them, but that stopped happening.
Awesome. Okay,
great
so
tradition.
We had some topics sent in, and we're just kind of randomly doing this so that we can test our
this always makes me nervous because I don't get to see these before.
This is a good one. We're hearing a lot of this in our business, as we do our HR consulting, but how to deliver effective annual reviews.
Ooh. Well, I got thoughts on that. Yeah, I got thoughts on that, but I'll argue this is your expertise. Talk to me, Teddy Bear.
Well, I think you've unpacked a model for me before in the past, and I want to go to that model here in a second. Okay. But the first thing I'm going to say is I think we ought to start to issue a ban against annual review processes. Now, my HR friends out in the world are probably a little squeamish.
There is somebody right now itching.
But I think one of the things that often happens in organizations is we figure, hey, we'll get to the annual review at the end of the year, and we forget to review people throughout the year.
Yeah.
And so I'm more, hey, if we need to do a final summary of performance at the end of the year for compliance reasons or legal reasons or whatever, go for it. But I think it shouldn't take the place of incremental improvement conversations and review conversations. So I think I'd like to take the conversation in that direction.
Can I ask you a couple questions?
Yeah.
Is there a tendency with your background, and this is what I feel, is that if you only do the annual review once a year, that recency bias plays into place because February, March, and April were a long time ago.
Yeah, recency bias from both directions.
Correct.
Like, oh, you've killed it the past 3 months, and so I'm giving you a really good review. Or you've been terrible the last 3 months for whatever reason. I'm giving you a bad review, regardless of the first 9 months. You absolutely slayed it.
I've noticed that because we're in the process of doing I'm going to use our HR compliance, make sure we got everything on record, and to go back to think about January, February, March.
It's hard.
Holy smokes, that's an eon ago.
Yeah. So let's talk about, I think, how to best be giving feedback throughout the year. Because I think it's hard. Like people, I honestly believe that managers, leaders of people, they're good people. They want the best for their people, but a lot of them are nervous or scared even about giving feedback for the belief that all of a sudden their direct report is going to leave or their direct report isn't going to like them anymore. It's going to create all this friction that makes it more difficult moving forward.
What I heard you just say is most of the time it's about us as the leader giving the feedback, not actually the feedback itself.
Do you think that?
I have. I would argue the last year I'm less about that because I've really dealt with this, whether we like it or not, we carry this baggage of insecurities or will they like me or are they going to be okay with this or God forbid they get upset and leave. What am I have to explain to the rest of the team because I gave them feedback? When the reality is it's for the greater good of the organization. And if you truly care about somebody and see value in them, then that feedback's much easier to give. I call it 20 seconds of courage and 5 minutes of awkward. Only takes 20 seconds of courage to say, hey, Mike, really appreciate everything you're doing right now. Are you open for some feedback? And then 5 minutes of awkward, right?
Yeah.
And there's some great books out there on that, change the culture, change the game. There's some books out there that I've read on that, but it really just takes 20 seconds of courage and 5 minutes of awkward. But it has to start with the question, are you open for some feedback? Now, there's other things you can think about, but that's where I tend to land.
And I don't want to make this whole conversation about what I'm about ready to say because I want to get into the model that you've got in your head. But I think you also I can't, if I have no trust built between the person that I'm leading, I can't just walk in there and ask that question and then expect them to say yes. Or if I haven't created some psychological safety, or if they don't believe that I'm in it for them and for the organization, if they think I'm just in it for the organization or just in it to like flex my power or something like that, they're not gonna say yes to your question. They may say yes to your question, but they don't mean
no,
and they're not going to listen, and they're not going to.
If I could back that whole statement up, so I would say, are you open for some feedback? First of all, I want to make sure you understand how much I cherish our trust, and if there's anything that's going to violate that, I don't want to have this, intermediate part of conflict. I'm going right through Patrick Lencioni's, 5 dysfunctions of a team. Yeah. But if you cherish trust and the trust is there, then the feedback's easy. When the trust isn't there, I would 100% agree with you. Awful hard to give feedback to somebody that you don't have a lot of trust with.
Yeah. And so we could talk for hours about how to build trust.
Yeah.
There was a phrase I saw one time. Trust takes a long time to build, a second to break, and an eternity to rebuild.
Correct.
Right? And so you got to be really careful on that. But let's just assume for right now that we've got good trust with the person that we're talking to. Let's assume also right now that we think feedback should be given along the process. When you're coaching your EOS clients, how do you what kind of frequency do you encourage them? I think there's some things built into the model about how often we want to give feedback and have these conversations.
Yeah, well, if you're going to be purity from EOS, you have, they call them 555 meetings or quarterly checkups. Mm-hmm. And on a quarterly basis, there's the concept of the quarterly checkup is just check on the values. How are we doing with the values? How are you doing with your rocks? How are you doing with your measurables? Are you open to some feedback or some ideas? Or you want to bounce some things off each other to improve our values, our rocks, our measurables? I love the informality of the intentionality of that, right? But you have to be intentional about setting those up. I have, be it ADD, ADHD, whatever other letters you want to throw on there, I'm so more informal of looking for the opportunity to have a conversation. I love good things and bad things, just creates an opportunity to have those conversations. So although I teach and preach and believe in the EOS quarterly conversations, and those really are, they're quarterly critical conversations. Man, those 90 days in between, there's all sorts of opportunities to not only build on the trust, but build on that feedback.
So how do you, one of the things I've heard from people before is, from leaders, is I gave them some feedback 2 days ago. And then and it was fine, but then I want to give them some feedback now, but I don't want to pile on, and I don't want this compounding effect where the person is kind of going, man, you're always on my butt about something. And how do you handle that?
Well, I got my hands in my pocket because I go through things in my pocket because I believe curiosity gives you permission, right? And so in our world, we talk about protection equals permission. And I got to make sure that they are protected enough that gives me the permission to give them that feedback. And so I go through a series of questions to see if they're even open for it. If that was if we could go through that path. So I'm going to pull my hand out, but this hand in my pocket's counting, right? And the first thing I ask is, how you doing? How you okay? That's
You're
the surface level.
Too.
Yeah,
it's just fine.
Yeah, okay. I'll do it, but it's over here too.
Most of these people are listening to it. They're not saying it anyway.
So my thumb is up. Right, and I say my thumb up because if I show you thumbs up, are you doing okay?
Yeah.
And just ask, how's things going? How's family? Just that surface level conversation. If that tends to see that you got this feedback and you can tell they're open for some rapport, then I go to the pointer finger, which is, what's the number one thing you're focusing on right now? No different if I pointed at something, that's what I'm focusing on. The middle finger, which I tend to get driving home, is what's the bother? What's you can argue, what's making you mad, what's frustrating you, but I use that in my head to remind myself, hey, I want to ask them what they're focused on. What's the distractions? What's bothering you? What's pissing you off? Whatever term you want to use. I'm trying to keep this PG as much as I can.
Yeah.
The ring finger, just like all our ring fingers, is what's the relationship you're focusing on. And so I let the conversation, I don't get so stiff, I ask it just like that, but I let the conversation take me there of, what's the one relationship you're working on right now? It could be a client that they're working on. It could be internal. It could be a family member. I don't know where that's going to be. I just got to be curious enough to let them tell me. Because if I find out that they're going to talk all these answers, I'm focusing on my family right now and really frustrated with my son, and I'm really wanting to get deeper with my mother-in-law, I don't know if I'm open to giving business feedback right now. You know what I'm saying? Because their mind's someplace else. And then the pinky, which is that little thing. What's the one thing that you really want to work on right now? What's the one little thing, right? The pebble in the shoe, princess in the pea, to, man, if I just had this going, everything else would start to trigger, the one domino, if you will. And so I think about my hand that way. And then after that feedback, my hand is either open or closed in my pocket. If my hand is open, I'm hearing they are open for some feedback, right? Hey, are you open for some feedback right now? Is how that question sounds like. You're in a good space. I'd love to, let's go there together, right? It's not me telling you. I want to go there together. I want to discover something together. But I also got to realize if the fist is closed, when I'm asking all those questions, I'm just feeling this, cold shoulder. Life is not right. I'm not in that mindset. I got to realize they're closing their fist, which means I'm going to try to feed something, and there's a good chance I take one of the chops from it. Does that make sense to you? So I use that as my template in my head because I'm not skilled enough to have all those skills. So all it does is allow me, whether we like it or not, a system or a process to dig in that tells me, hey, this isn't the day. Man, they're ready. It's a growth opportunity today.
So is this a Joshua Hauser model, or did you steal this from somewhere?
Multiple people? I will give clear credit to the person who helped me clear this up, a guy by the name of Chris Haynes. A hell of a dancer, and I'm not making that up. I make a lot of things up. I'm not making that up.
Like ballroom dancing, or getting jiggy with it dancing?
Doing the plachanga. I mean, he could have been on, Dancing with Stars in a heartbeat. Patrick Swayze has nothing on Chris Haynes in looks either. No, he takes these things and simplifies them. And we were having this conversation one day, and we went through this series. I was like, done, adopted. And good ideas are borrowed, great ideas are stolen. I openly admit stolen. Yeah. 100% stolen.
Yeah. Okay. So when you're thinking logistically about this, so you're going through these different things, are you asking these 5 questions without giving any feedback or engaging at all after the question?
I'm a +2 fan. So whatever question I ask, whatever they say back, I try to go 2 more questions deep. So how you doing? Good. Well, I'm sorry. I should. Let me high-low buffalo you. You ever do high-low buffalo? What's your high? What's your low? Tell me what the...
Yeah.
And so I try to get a little bit deeper because if they don't go deep, they're not going to go deep in the feedback.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
But let me ask you
too stiff. But
let me ask a little more directly.
Yeah, dig in.
Like if you were to say, what's the number one thing you're working on?
Yeah.
And they say, well, I'm working on generating more business. And you might say, okay, what do you think's keeping you from doing that?
Correct.
Like, and you start to hear, are you starting to go into, communication around that and helping them get better in that? Because you haven't gotten through all the questions to know that.
A lot of times you don't have to get all the way there. They'll take you right where you want to go. And I'm always listening for the opportunity to ask this question. What do you need from me? If I can get to the what do you need from me, or if they say what I need from you is, Okay, now, even though you don't feel like you're giving feedback, you are. They're giving you the feedback that what they need from you, which is giving you permission to give them feedback on how you're going to get there. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
That is the 5th level of open and honest. And when you get to that, what I need from you is, or what do you need from me? And it turns into a conversation, whether we like it or not, that's actually feedback, because that's the most pure sense of, Mike, if you would just do this for me, I'm just stuck here. Can you help me get through this? Or do you know somebody who could? Awesome. Let's go there.
Yeah. So let's talk about how, one of the things that I think is very beneficial that at the end of a year, and you're probably having these conversations with people here at Invest, or will be soon.
Correct.
Is what are you can't say correct yet because you don't even know what I'm going to say.
End of the year. You said end of the year. You said you're probably having these conversations end of the year.
No, the conversation about what we bring up.
Let's see what happens.
Individual development plans.
Oh.
Okay. So I think that's the most valuable thing that you can do at the end of the year or the beginning of the next year, is to say, what has happened this year around my growth and my performance, and what do I want to happen next year around my growth and my performance, right? And then how does a model like this play into helping somebody accomplish those things?
Oh, wow. We talked about in a recent episode the 10x versus 2x, right? Philosophically, my belief system is that I can actually tell myself who I'm going to be at the end of the year. And I believe that people can actually project themselves at the end of the year and stop working for who you are today and start actually working for who I'm going to be at the end of 2024. So a personal development plan to me is clearly articulating, what do you want life to look like? If we were sitting here December 31st, 2024, what happened? Tell me everything that happened.
Yeah.
And then once they tell you what happened, okay, how are we going to get there? Okay, now what are the first steps we got to take? What are the first dominoes? We spend so much time saying, here's the number, let's go get the number, rather than what do you want it to look like? What's your life look like? What does your unique ability, what did you spend 80% of every day giving your maximum energy and going home and not recovering and recharging? Okay, let's work backwards and try to figure that one out. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. And I think a lot of leaders, I'm sure you've done this in your past, and I know I've done it in my past and probably my present, is we forget about what somebody's really trying to accomplish. And we're so focused on one element of them performing in the business world that we forget about all those other things. And so my encouragement to leaders is to really get to know your people and understand what they're really wanting to accomplish, in the year. And certainly we're paying them to produce results for our organization so that we can have profit, so that we can grow the business, so that we can reward people and things like that. But I think oftentimes as leaders, we go there and only there. And that creates a trust problem. It creates the employees starting to think, don't you care about me?
Yeah, it's about
or do you
me,
just
not
care about
we.
the number?
Yeah, as a leader, it's about me, not we, right? And once you make it about them, the byproduct is it does take care of we, right? A better them is a better us, right? A better me is a better you. And so how do we focus on that? We actually do an exercise. You've seen it. We call it the Jordan board, which is we call it the why Accelerator. Let's get your why clear. What's your values? What's your mission statement? What are your lifetime achievements? What's the number 1, 2, and 3 achievement you want to get done? I don't care if it's personally or professionally. It's your decision. And then let's build a plan, which is what we call the Accelerator, of what we're going to do this year to do that. And then what happens over the next 90 days. And then thank you, Dan Sullivan, that what are the dangers, opportunities, and strengths that will keep us from there or get us there faster.
Yeah, and this is a good, you teach what you need to learn most, I think.
Oh,
and
I'm
glad we're having this conversation because, as I mentioned in our last episode, we're rolling into our annual planning. And, as a leader, what I need to do, and maybe this is a takeaway for everybody, is we need to get more connected with what the motivations are of our team, what they want to see happen in all aspects of their life. And our job as a leader is to be there to support that. Now, I'm not saying that supporting that, if that doesn't produce the results that the organization needs to see, then we need to have another conversation, right? But oftentimes when we help people accomplish what they want to accomplish, everything else take care of itself.
Thank you, Zig Ziglar.
Thank you.
How about that?
You used to get down on that one knee if you just help enough other people.
Correct.
Yeah. So, and I think that's it's so easy to get caught in this other piece as a business leader. And so we need to think that. So let's go through the 5 fingers again,
thumb.
And then we'll wrap things up. So
somehow, some way, find out how they're doing.
Yep. Okay.
Pointer finger. What are they focusing on? What's driving their focus?
Yep.
Is it family? Is it business? Is it errors? Is it success?
Yep.
What's driving them nuts? That's that middle finger.
The middle finger.
That's the driver who cuts you off or sits in the left lane on the interstate.
Yep.
What's the one relationship that's critical right now that they really want to dig into?
Yep.
And be a listener on that. Don't give suggestions, be that listener. What's the one little thing, the first domino? If that thing just started, that happened, man, life is good. And then listen. They're going to tell you if they're open hand in your pocket, or closed. They're closed. Right? I'm not going to force it if they're closed.
Yeah.
But I'm going to listen like crazy when they're closed, because all we know, we can only hold that fist so long. Listen, and that hand will open right up.
Yeah, for sure. The last thing that I'll leave the listeners with, and then we'll wrap this up, is if you find that you have somebody on your team that is not interested in these types of conversations over and over and over again, and you feel like you've done what you can do to build the trust, there's a very strong possibility that you have somebody that is not aligned with your core values.
Yeah.
Our number one core value is we learn at our organization, and that includes reading books, and that includes listening to podcasts or reading white papers, whatever. But it also includes being developed. And if they're not open to being developed and having other people involved in that journey, then they probably don't subscribe to our core values. So if you have some sort of core value that has to do with personal growth, developing, learning, and all that, and they're resistant to this process, then we probably have a misfit.
I love EOS calls it grow or die.
Yeah, for sure.
Hate that, but it's true.
All right.